I'm on a quest of making my holiday wardrobe, as you might know. If you're new here, there is already a video that you can check out. I'm gonna link it in the description box of my make last week. This week I have actually something that I personally am very excited about because I have recently been named an official ambassador of one of my all-time favorite fabric shops, Fabric Godmother. This is really exciting for me. It's like a small achievement, if you will, right? So I already made this dress a couple of weeks ago. I think it turned out so beautifully, and I'm not gonna take away too much. I think it's a really good make for the Christmas season, and you will see why. I'm gonna rewind now, and I'm gonna show you past Elisa opening the parcel for the first time and explaining to you what we're gonna make. So let's go. It is here, the very first parcel. I am so excited about this. I don't think I can convey to you how cool this is for me. I've been buying from this specific brand for a long time. They have such beautiful fabrics. They not only sell a lot of dead stock fabrics, which is a really sustainable choice when sewing, but they also have the most beautiful prints that they digitize themselves and print on different kinds of fabric qualities. I'm really excited to be partnering up with them. So I have not actually looked into this parcel yet, which means you get my live reaction to what the fabric is like. Obviously I know what's in the parcel because I told them which kind of fabric I would like to work with. So here it goes, let's open it. A good floral. You guys know I love a good floral. So this is a viscose jacquard, and jacquard, oh gosh, look at this print, it's so gorgeous. A jacquard is basically a fabric where there is a pattern woven into the fabric, but then you can also print something on it. So this has basically two layers of motif going on. So the first one, you might see in the sunlight, the first one is this shimmering black foliage going on the black base, and then the second one are the gorgeous flowers. So we have some, I don't actually know what these are, probably anemones, and then we have some eucalyptus, we have some greenery, and these beautiful orange tiny flowers, which I think give it a really nice touch. So this is 3 meters of fabric. It has a really nice weight to it. It's super drapey, as you can see. It's just gorgeous. I'm in love. And it's such a nice versatile color and pattern combination because I think you can easily wear this in summer, but you can also easily wear this in winter depending on the design of what you're going to make. With this fabric, I'm going to make a good old Reformation dupe. You know me, I love a good Reformation design, and I think this fabric is just perfect for it. I recently stumbled across this dress in actually a different pattern, and then I found it again in this print, and it's just so close to that fabric. It's meant to be. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a very simple midi dress. I don't think I'm gonna do a slit. Haven't fully decided on that yet, but it's definitely gonna be a semi-circle skirt. I'm going to give it this beautiful square neckline and the long sleeves, because I think with the long sleeves this is going to be a perfect dress for the festive season, which is upon us. So I'm very excited about this. I think the first thing I'm going to do is to start develop the pattern, and I'm taking you along, so hopefully you learn something from it. So let's go. We need a pattern master, we need paper scissors, we need a Sharpie, and we need a tape measure. What we also need is a basic bodice block. Now, if you've been around here for a while, you know that I have a tutorial for this. I'm going to link it in the description so you can create a bodice block for yourself, which is the starting point for this pattern. This is the front and this is the back, with the center being a fold for both front and back. We have a shoulder dart and a waist dart in both pieces. We're going to start out with the front. So for the pattern that we are going to create, there are a few things that we need to alter about this basic bodice block. For starters, we have a square neckline and we don't have the shoulder area in the bodice piece. We have a square neckline that kind of goes over here to an armhole, and then we have the armhole just the lower third of it. We also don't have the shoulder dart in the piece or the waist dart, but what I want to do is I want to move the width of both of these darts into my side. I've done something like this in a recent project and it worked really well. So let's modify this bodice block. First up, I need to decide where about I want my neckline to hit. I'm going to move up from the apex of my bust, which is around here, by about 10 centimeters. I can always lower the neckline in the sewing process. So I'm gonna say it's gonna start somewhere around here. I'm now going to square in a perpendicular angle to my center front line all the way over to my armhole like this. I can now cut away the upper section of the bodice because I don't need it. Now, as I said, we want to move the remaining width of the shoulder dart as well as the waist into the side seam. For that, we need to first decide where this new dart is going to be. I want this new dart to basically start at the apex of my bust and then move somewhere in the middle of my side, something like this. Now, to actually distribute this width into here, we need to make a couple of incisions, one in the waist, one in the shoulder, and then the third one along this new dart without actually cutting this piece loose. You need to make sure there's still a hinge that you can pivot the things around on. All right, so now we need to grab some Scotch tape and we can fold the darts out of the way. And the same thing applies here. And now we have something looking like this. Now, I recently learned that darts can also be in an S-shaped curve, which gives it a bit of a more natural look. I'm gonna fold my piece along the dart like this, and then I'm going to give it a bit of a curve. Something like that. And now I'll cut it. And now you can see when we close the side, we have an apex, which is going to be more curved once these things are sewn together. Okay, so that's basically the front done. What I will do is I'll curve this out a little bit more to make it a little nicer looking. What I will also do is I'll lower the armhole and I'll move it further in like that. So now when I measure from my center front over here, I need to put it on myself and see if I think this works. I'll move it in a little bit more even. Now that the front is sorted, we have to focus on the back. So for the back, things are fairly simple. What we need to do is basically make sure that the side seams are matching up. So for me, that means I need a side seam of 19 centimeters. I'm just gonna go ahead and trace that part of the back bodice. So again, side seam has to be 19, like this. So we also need the lower third of our armhole curve in the back. So I'm basically gonna make a dot here that indicates how high I want the back piece to be. And I'm gonna transfer that over. And now I can connect the dots like this. And draw out the lower armhole curve like this. So this is our center back. Now, I want the back piece to be sheared, which is why I didn't draw the dart in. That means we need to add 1/3 of the width of this piece to the center back. My piece is 22 centimeters in width in total, so I'm gonna add 8 centimeters to account for my shearing. So that's the shearing part. This is our new center back fold. And that's the back piece. So we now have a front and the back sorted, and now we need to focus on the sleeve. I'm first going to cut a large piece of paper that I can fold in the middle. This is going to be the center fold of our sleeve. First up, we need to suss out how long we want the sleeve to be. So take a tape measure, put it on your arm, and then finding the apex of your shoulder all the way down to your wrist, try to find the length that you're looking for. So I'm gonna go for 63 centimeters. So I'm going to square out from my center fold in a perpendicular angle. And then from this point, I'm gonna measure down 60, I'm gonna make it 64 just to make it an even number. And then I'm just gonna square out from there once more. Now again, take your tape measure and place it on the apex of your shoulder, measuring down to the widest part of your upper arm. For me, that's about 17 centimeters. So from that top point here, I measure down once more, 17 centimeters, and once more, I square out from here in a perpendicular angle, but this time in a guideline. Now on this line, we need to measure half the circumference of the widest part of our upper arm. For me, that's 17. Measure it down here. Because I want this to be a semi-fitted sleeve and then kind of like square out into a bell shape, I'm gonna again take my tape measure, put it to the apex of my shoulder and find about the height of my elbow. Again, from that top point here, measuring down, creating a guideline for my elbow. And now again, on this line, I'm gonna apply half the circumference of my arm in the elbow area. Always think that you want to add a little bit of ease to things so you can move and it's not too tight. Okay, so we can definitely connect these 2 points. Because I want the top of the sleeve to be a little bit puffy, I'm going to raise it by, say, 3. And then from here, I'm going to create this S-shaped curve, which is the shoulder area of my sleeve. And now, to create the puffiness, we can have a think about how wide we want this area to be. So I'm gonna apply 20 here. I'm gonna connect these points. And now I'm gonna lower this here by 2 and create a nice curve, trying to make sure that it meets my fold in a perpendicular angle, and then just smoothing out the curve here. And that is the sleeve. So all of the pattern pieces are now prepared. We have the front piece, we have the back piece, which I said is going to be sheared, and we have the sleeve that looks like that. The only thing that I didn't cut on paper is the skirt, because I'm going to make a circle skirt that I can just draw out on my actual fabric so I don't waste any crafting paper. And now I'm ready to cut all of my pieces. Not so sure why the circle skirt was quite so difficult to cut now, but it kind of was. I think it's because the pattern obviously has a direction, so the flowers are looking up, so I couldn't just fold the fabric in half and then cut the circle skirt or semicircle skirt along that fold. I had to cut 2 pieces individually on the pattern to make it make sense. So now all of the flowers are looking up instead of them looking up in front and down in the back, if that makes sense. I hope it does. But we do have a semicircle skirt now, which is about knee length. Okay, so that means we are now getting into the sewing phase. I think the first thing I'm going to do is to shear the back, because that takes the longest. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Probably fetching my iPad and putting on a movie. So the first thing we need to shear is some shearing elastic, which we are going to hand wind onto a bobbin. Always keep in mind that you want to place it in your machine counterclockwise, as you usually would, and make sure the elastic gets caught by the tension disc before you start sewing. I'm gonna grab a cut off from cutting my pieces earlier, and I'm gonna set my machine to a stitch length of 5. That's the longest stitch length that's available in my machine. And now let's see if this works. And it does. The more rows we sew, the more pronounced it's going to be. So with my back being prepared, I'm now going to serge this top seam, fold it over, press it, and then sew it down once. Okay, so now that this is prepared, we can start with the shearing, and that's going to take a while. Hey guys, so I finished up the sheared back yesterday, and then I ran out on battery on my phone, so I had to stop sewing. So now I'm gonna move on to the front, and I'm gonna sew in the bust darts. So we now have a front piece with the darts sewn in and a lining piece with the darts sewn in, and this is going to face each other, right sides touching, and I'm going to pin it along the neckline. I'm now going to give this a straight stitch. I'm now going to go to my iron and press it open like so, and then once more to get a nice clean finish before I understitch the seam allowance. Alright, now the front piece is prepared. We have a really nice bust, a bit pointy, but I guess that's how it is. And we have the back piece. Now, the idea for this dress is that we're going to have a zip in one of the side seams under the sleeve. So when we get into the dress, because it has a square neckline and an open back, it's gonna be easy for us to put our head through the dress, and we're gonna open the zip on the side to get everything in place and then zip it up to make it fit nice and neat. That means that we can sew one of the side seams shut with the back of the dress. So I'm placing right sides touching, and then I'm gonna start to pin back and front together. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and serge this seam as well. Okay, so progress has been made. This is what the top looks like at the moment. You can see that one sleeve is already in, and I did that because I needed to test it. So basically, the way you sew together your sleeve is like any other sleeve. You basically fold it in half so the right sides are touching, and then you can sew the side seam, which is this one. What I also did is I already serged my shoulder curve, and then I took it to my iron and I folded it over by 1 centimeter, like here, and I tried to press it as round and neat as I can to have a 1 centimeter of continuous seam allowance around the shoulder curve that I can then utilize as my tunnel. I'm now going to show you how I sew the sleeve to the top. Yeah. Okay, so first, to prepare the top to add the second sleeve, we need to close the first, probably third of the side where the zip is going to go in. So I'm going to place the two sides, right sides touching, place a few pins, and then I'm going to sew shut about this much. Now I'll take this to my serger and I'll serge the two sides individually. All right, so this is where the zip is going to go in later, but now we have this armhole curve here, which we need to insert our sleeve. So I'm going to grab my sleeve, turn it around, and I'll make sure the right side is facing me. And I'll open the seam allowance like this. And then I'll grab the side seam of the sleeve and place it on the side seam of the top. And this is where I place my first pin. And then I'll pin the sleeve along the front as long as my armhole curve is, because as you can see, it's only a small section. And then in the back, I'm gonna do the same thing. But I noticed that the back armhole curve is pretty short, so I instead decided to make it a little bit longer, like this. That makes sense. So instead of following the armhole curve that I created before, I create a new one. And then I just cross-reference this with the other side on the back to see if the back matches up, and it matches up perfectly. You can see that I left the same amount on both sides to be cut away later. Now I'm going to sew this onto my top, and I'm gonna follow this crease here that I'm not sure you can see from my pressing earlier. So I'm gonna just sew along here in a 1 centimeter distance. So we have both sleeves in, and we have something looking like this. Looks a bit like a top, doesn't it? The side here is still open because again, this is where a zip is going to go in later, but the sleeves are inserted successfully. Now the last thing to do will be to insert the elastics here, but I won't have time to do that right now because I have a hair appointment which I need to get to. So I'll see you next time I'm sewing on this. Hello guys, it is a new week, and it's been a few days since I worked on this last. I spent the weekend in Oxford, so didn't really have time to sew on this. So this is still where we're at. The next step will be to insert the elastic into the shoulder curves, and then the top is finished and we can move on to the skirt. Okay, so as we've left it, we have the shoulder curve pressed over by 1 centimeter. So the first thing to do will be to stitch that down, top stitch it down, and leave the lower section open. I also cut 4 strips of elastic in the right length so I can make sure it comfortably fits around my shoulder while still giving me a little bit of tension to hold the shoulder curve in place. We can then insert that into the channel that we created for the shoulder curve. So let's do all of this. Okay, so let's move on to the skirt. I am placing the 2 semicircle skirt panels right side touching, and then I'm sewing together the one side seam that is corresponding with the already closed side on my dress, because on the other side we will have the zip. For me, that means I'm closing the left side seam because on the right I do have a zip. So this is what the dress looks like so far. The skirt is sewn together on the side but still open on this side, as is the top. And I also cut a lining skirt that is a bit shorter than the actual skirt, and now we can assemble all of our pieces. Okay, so let's place the top in front of us. I have here my lining skirt. The waist is up here, and I have my shell skirt. I'm gonna start with the shell skirt. I'm simply gonna open up the top so I can access the side, and I'm going to place the side seam of the skirt, right sides touching with the top, and I'm going to start pinning from here. Okay, so I now attached the skirt in the first go, and now I can go ahead and attach the lining skirt as well. And I'm going to do that by grabbing it, finding the waist. Then I already nipped the midpoint of my seamless lining skirt. We don't have a side seam here, only on one side, and I'm gonna place that right sides touching with the side seam so that the two skirts are basically hiding away the top. And we're gonna do that and sew it down, and once we've done that, when we turn it over, we're gonna have a super clean finish on the inside. Alright, so I went out on my lunch break to get a zipper, and now we can finish up the closure of the dress.